Okay, I am so excited. I have Brenda Snow on here, and there's so much I want to ask her, but I only have her for a limited time. So I'm gonna hope that we can like get her back on. But she wrote a really interesting book, and I have to admit I have not read it yet, but I did do a deep dive, and I have to tell you, this is on my list now. I really need to read this book, and it's called The Essential Guide to Navigating the Patient's Journey. So Brenda, you are just a writer. You're not just a CEO or a philanthropist. You are also a patient.
I am. I am. Well, thank you. Yeah, the book is called Diagnosed, The Essential Guide to Navigating the Patient Journey. It came out in March, and I'm very proud of it. And quite simply, it's the book I wish I had when I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. So I think, like everybody listening to this podcast, in some way, shape, or form, right? You've been touched by a life changing illness, a chronic condition, whether you're the patient or the person that loves them. And there's no like, hey, this is how everything's going to go, great for you or not great for you for the next 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 years. So when I had time during COVID to do things differently for myself and not be working and running a business that I founded, I was like, gosh, so many times I've been asked, what did you do when this happened? Or how did you think about this? And so I thought, if there's one thing that I kind of want to leave behind when I'm no longer here, is my thoughts about how you go from hearing the devastating words of you have condition X, and how do you live and build back your 2.0 version and still do it in a way that you feel supported, loved, and can ultimately have a life of purpose. So I think you'll find all kinds of good advice, some dirty words, which is fun, some dirty words in the book, some funny stuff in the book, some stuff that will make you cry, and really the journey that you'll go on. So, yeah, high level.
That is quite an interesting thing to unpack. And what I'm loving about what you're writing about is that it's so universal. And that you and I have different disorders. I have Ehlers-Danlos plus all the extra ones that go
Yeah,
on to that.
yeah,
If you're okay with the discussion, I believe you have MS.
I do. Yep.
And these are two very different disorders, but what you're talking about is something that's so universal to everyone, from a cancer diagnosis to Lyme's disease. Like anyone who is experiencing those, or I would argue aging, also can
Well,
get this.
there's that too.
I'm always telling people, like, disability is the club everyone is invited to. You will either have a bad day or you will age into us. And either way, this is such an important discussion to be having, because you're right, it is a journey. Our media has failed us and they don't tell really good disability stories. So you're talking about taking the, I don't want to say opportunity, because I'm so not into the kumbaya, everything happens for a reason, just
Yeah.
because I don't personally feel it's productive for me. But you are talking about this as an opportunity in front of you. And unfortunately, when we're given this information of you have this, it's usually a doctor who's telling you this, who does not have this.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And it was for me too. I was misdiagnosed and was told all kinds of crazy things. A lot of people know my story, but I was told I had headaches, but I never complained of a headache. I was told that, the reason I had all this, leg loss and urination, couldn't control my bladder, was because I'd had a kid. Never mind, my kid was 5. And ultimately, I was told that I was inventing and making up every symptom because I had an extreme mental disorder, and they were encouraging my dad to make me sign myself over and commit myself to a mental institution. So what's really a total bummer is that we're 30 years later and this kind of stuff is still going on. Some categories and diseases are getting diagnosed quicker with the advent of technology, but there is still underserved patient populations. There is still misrepresentation. There is still not giving you a proper dose diagnosis when you're presenting with those symptoms. And I think, the healthcare system is strained. It's hard. And that's why in the book, I am so about, advocating for yourself, with the caveat that it's really freaking hard when you feel really bad to advocate for yourself. So that is why you have to lean into your connectivity and your vulnerability and let people help you. I know that when I was first diagnosed, I was so uncomfortable with people helping me, right? And it's the key advice I give you: seek for that diagnosis. And one of the things I cover in the book, Monica, is like after you hear those words, you have condition X, then what happens? And I think it's not always linear, but there's stages. Grief is the first thing that comes up. And I spend a lot of time unpacking grief in the book. And I think it's the one thing that can really get the best of you, but my advice is it's good to mourn. It's okay to mourn. It's good to synthesize this massive change in your life and your family's life and your friend's life. But grief is one of these things that if we stay there too long, it's really hard to get out of. And it's really hard to ever try to find that new you. You're still the same you. You just might need to do things differently because grief can be really tough. And if anybody out there is listening to this and you feel in that place, I'm welcome to answer emails on brenda@brendasnow.com because I just never want anybody feeling as terrible as I did for that period of time in my life. And the other thing I think we fall into is I was mourning and grieving all of these things I thought I lost. This a laundry list of things, very easily becoming victimhood, right? And then as I started to kind of process all of this stuff and did the work over years too, I realized that all these things that I was grieving that I lost were actually things that had never even come to fruition, right? They were almost like things I had invented loss. So I think that's a dangerous trap we have to watch out for. Or at least I know in my case it was.
I have like 50 directions I want to go from what you just said, and there's so much to unpack here. And you're going to have to forgive my ADD on this. So I'm going to go linearly if that's okay. You said something that I think is so important. I want to backtrack just a little bit. If it's too traumatizing, just say, hey, no. But you talked about the mental health issue I feel like there's a mental health pipeline for anyone who's female presenting to a mental health facility. And I was in the same boat where my mother was told to institutionalize me. It ended up being CRPS. So I feel like that's a common issue that a lot of people, especially female presenting, have in this world. And the weird thing is even after it's not, I say it almost like lightly just as a ha ha ha, I can't believe I was almost institutionalized, but the trauma was, I don't want to lighten the trauma because going to a mental hospital is not a light discussion.
No. And it is real trauma. And, I've shared my story literally thousands and thousands of times across the globe and have done deep work with patients across the globe. And that still is top 3 trauma days in my life. That is still top 3, still brings me to tears sometimes because what was really insidious about that is, like I said, I knew something was wrong with me. I mean, I was wetting my pants. I couldn't work my left leg. My dad's dragging me into the door to the doctor. I'm a smart, intelligent person. I had cognitive impairment. I couldn't think anymore. I'm also high energy. I was so tired. It felt like somebody cut off my neck and filled me with concrete. So I knew something was wrong. And then to be dismissed about any of those symptoms and just to say it's because, you are, I think like one of the words he used was demented. I mean, like really, and I think the part of the story that hopefully adds some levity, because this isn't an easy topic, is after he said this, the only thing that I could blurt out was F you. And then he said, see, she's crazy. But that's how I felt because it was just, I just was like, I can't believe somebody's saying this to me. I couldn't even process this fast, but I got in the car with my dad and the tears just streaming down my face. I'll never forget it. And I will also say that I would be lying if I didn't for about 30 seconds stop and go, well, is he right? Like, has that happened to me? And a massive amount of self-doubt that can fill you with. And again, it's one of the themes in the book that I want desperately people to connect with is don't doubt yourself. This is hard shit. Don't doubt yourself because it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. There are going to be other emotions that you layer on: anger, You're going to have so much resiliency and endurance. It's unbelievable. It's a gold medal athlete level, like 10 times over. And so don't give up on yourself. Don't fall into that trap of feeling like you're less than or not believing in the essence of who you are because you're not crazy. You do deserve a diagnosis. You deserve joy and happiness. It might be different than you thought, but you are deserving of it. And I like to tell people that you have to keep hope present.
In your book with this journey, one of the things that really strikes me with when they bring, because no one can gaslight me better than I can gaslight myself. I have 2 good days. I am convinced I can go do everything. And obviously I've been dramatic. And then like the next day in bed. We now have a situation where you're talking to a doctor who has basically threatened your autonomy and your freedom. And
Correct.
now you're going to have to work with maybe not that doctor, but you're going to have to go into other facilities to try to work with someone who has this power to remove your medication, to say yes or no to therapies that you might want to try, all the way to losing your autonomy and freedom with a mental hospital. How in this book do you talk about this doctor-patient relationship? Because the power imbalance, and I'm not shitting on doctors. There are plenty of amazing doctors.
There are
also some very bad doctors. And we can't, just like, not all men, we can't always tell the difference.
That's true. That's true. Well, I do break down some sections in the book about the importance of your healthcare, your relationship with your healthcare team. So, like in my case, that obviously wasn't the right neurologist for me. But I'll leave you. But I'll leave you with this cliffhanger. After I'm diagnosed in a hospital, he does appear again. So that chapter, The Man in the Yellow Hat, it's worth a read. Let's just say I had my final word, but I knew he wasn't the right fit for me. And I had to, so at this point, I'd been to 4 neurologists. All of them hadn't worked out great. And my 5th one, she was a wonderful female neurologist. And she not only gave me the diagnosis of MS, but lovingly put her hand on my shoulder and let me know that, she always called me Miss Snow. She said, Miss Snow, you're not crazy, but you're very sick and you do have multiple sclerosis. So I was eternally grateful for her. And then, well, she was a very serious lady. There was never like a friendly repartee. Like I have some friends that have like their doctor over for dinner. That wasn't our kind of relationship. But she was a very good co-captain of my team. And so we quickly built, an occupational therapist, a physical therapist, a cognitive therapist. I spent a lot of time in the hospital in those early years. So, like, I think it's important that you feel heard. You have to find a doctor and a relationship where you feel heard, you feel validated, they're willing to try different things, you are not dismissed. And if those things are happening, you need to go find somebody else. They're not the right person.
And it's also a privilege issue too if you can find another person. One of the things I'd say is if you have a disorder, if you can go over to like Facebook groups or wherever you can find your tribe, go there and ask about the doctors, because sometimes we don't have the money. I believe we're both in the United States, where I probably spend close to $10,000 a year, even with insurance. But I want to get back to telemedicine. We need more of that so we can access doctors no matter where we are.
True.
I know I'm on a limited time with you. I want to make sure. You said a phrase called invented loss, and I'm trying to wrap my brain around what you mean by that. If you mean like sort of the Samuel Clemens idea of I don't want to worry because I still want to suffer twice, or if you're thinking more along the love affair that a lot of people seem to have with possibility. Like, it's more interesting to dream of the possibility than doing, and I really want to get a handle on that before we start talking about that next step of grief. And
I think it can potentially run along the lines of catastrophic thinking, right? So I can only speak for myself and my own personal experience. But when I was so deep into grief, I was grieving things that hadn't even come to fruition. So nobody will love me. I'll never have a life partner. I'll never be able to work. I'll never have a form of meaningful employment. We could be homeless. If I didn't have a dad that was able to help me, that would have been my daughter and I's fate. My daughter's going to be a loser and have all kinds of problems because I'm a loser, because I can't walk, because I'm in a wheelchair. Very dark things. None of these things were true about me. They weren't then and they aren't now. But those are the thinking things that I had going on. That's why I really want to tell people to like stop, because those things haven't happened. Those things aren't true. Those things are, you find yourself sort of inventing all the things that you think you've lost. Now, in actuality, what had I lost? I had lost the ability to walk. That was big grief that I was going through. I had, had a tumultuous time in the healthcare situation, but the day that I got diagnosed was a day that I did feel some relief. I was like, well, now that it has a name, let's see. And I had lost my job, but that's it. All the people that loved me still loved me. My daughter still loved me. My friends and family still loved me. They had some awkward times. They didn't know what to say, how to show up. That's another bucket of things to talk about. But all of this overwhelming thoughts that I had were things that I was like catastrophic thinking about and grieving stuff that wasn't necessarily true.
How did you like? I put a time limit for myself. It's say my sister and I have always done, where it's like you get 24 hours to wallow. No judgment. Watch the shows, eat the food, drink the drinks, smoke whatever you need to smoke. Like this is just your 24 to 48 hours, depending on if it's divorce or a bad day. And then after that, we need to come up with some sort of plan and start coming out of that. Is that like, what do you do to, it's pretty easy to like full 1980s, like, never ending stories, like we're sinking. It's real easy to get into that. How do you get out of that cycle?
Well, I think it's different for everybody. I mean, 24 hours is pretty remarkable. So kudos to you.
Oh, there's no kudos. This is, I don't know how healthy
it wasn't 24 hours for me. But what I will say is you get better at this, right? The longer you live with it. So my grief was many months when I was first diagnosed. But my grief now, when my disability affects my ability, my grief now is a lot shorter and a lot different, because I've been able to sort of work through this patient journey, if that makes any sense. So I've been sort of able to own my grief, think about the anger, look at acceptance, and build some self-confidence and some wins at what I've been able to do and accomplish in spite of MS. So, I don't want to sit here and be presumptuous and tell everybody, it's this easy to tick the box. But lean into friends, lean into the connections. There's lots of support groups that have free services, complimentary services. Look at those. Again, if you found the right healthcare team, hopefully they can be a resource to you. Support groups, online chats, things like your podcast. I mean, just by the very nature of us having this conversation is probably helping one person out there that might be stuck in grief. So I think it's more than one thing. Right? It's like you said, a pint of ice cream from the freezer and a good bath, that might take away a pretty good, decent part of a really bad day. But again, you want to come up with modalities and strategies that help you on the journey, the continuum. I've had MS for 30 years. I don't know how long you've lived with yours, but at the end of the day, I'm talking about conditions in my book that there's no cure for. So whenever you get diagnosed, you're going to have this for a long time, or in some cases, die of it.
You're talking about how to have endurance. And I do want to discuss endurance in just a moment, but we don't do anything in our lives alone. You do a lot of focus on the caregivers as well. And I wanted to talk a little bit about relationships in your book. And I don't know if it's okay to bring your daughter into this, but I can at least bring mine in. She's approved and she's an adult now, but there's been a lot of her journey as a caregiver from being a child and a teenager helping out with care. Can you discuss a little bit about in your book how relationships are working and what can be done to remember who you are in that relationship, whether that be wife, friend, husband, all of our relationships shift when we get these diagnoses.
They absolutely do. That's a terrific observation, Monica. And, I've been on a book tour, and early in the book, I call it an identity earthquake. And so the identity earthquake for me was kind of everything that I sort of had confident and ability in and thought who I was just dramatically changed from, being able to pay for the food we were eating on my table to how I looked. I mean, physically completely changed due to side effects of medication. So I went through my own identity earthquake. And of course, that affects the people that love you, right? And I do talk about the caregivers in the book because, I mean, there are unsung heroes in many cases. And I think the other thing that is important to note, if you are a caregiver listening to this, is the first bit of advice I would give you and the loved one, the patient, if you will, is everybody let go of the guilt, right? Like you didn't do anything to deserve this. Nobody was a bad person. This stuff sucks, but you didn't do anything to deserve this. And the caregiver really needs to watch out for their own identity earthquake, because all of a sudden you love your person, you're helping your person, you're helping your person, you're doing everything for your person. And then one day you look in the mirror and say, well, now who the hell am I? Who the hell am I? And so if you don't keep things that are precious, did you love, being a runner? Were you in a crocheting club? Like whatever it is that made you feel unique about being you, you need to keep those external friendships up. You need to keep your hobbies up, because you will come back to the care partner relationship ready to be a refreshed, better partner than one that gets totally burnt. And I've seen it way too many times. Resentment comes in, the relationship falls apart, whether it's divorce court or breakups or all kinds of other stuff that then adds another layer of stress on everybody when you're sick and not feeling well. And I also call it courageous conversations, Monica. People aren't mind readers. Sometimes you just have to say and muster up the strength to say what's on your mind. It's all about, I think, the framing and the delivery of how we take on those messages. So, you can have two very tones about, thanks for your help and thanks for your help. Those are two very different messages you're sending.
So like you're raising a teenager. I feel like you definitely are getting to that level right there. Yeah.
Yeah, where everything you say they just hate and they're pissed off. But I think, it's courageous conversations, especially if you're a caregiver, keeping the parts of your identity intact and letting go of the guilt associated with that. And if you're the patient, don't get into it on that point. Don't be a martyr. Don't be like, are you going out to go bowling because you don't love me or whatever it is? No, it's time for you to work on your self-confidence and growth. They're doing that because they want to stay with you, but they need to have a sense of who they are remain intact.
Because there's so many minefields in relationships, especially when we're discussing romantic relationships.
Yeah.
Like I think for me it was easier with my kids, but it can be really hard with expressing disappointment and frustration with someone who's already doing 90% of the work. And for my husband, it's always like a hard thing to come back and go, I have compassion fatigue. I don't know how many times I can tell you I'm sorry you're dislocated. This is a lot.
Yeah. And sometimes you're not even looking for more chores to be done, more work. You're just looking for that validation of, I'm sorry, right? I'm sorry you're having a shit day.
Well, we can go back to the medical trauma of gaslighting, where for like the first 6 years after diagnosis, I made him look at each dislocation and be like, yes, that's just right, that's dislocated. Can you sign off on this? Because I need someone else to sign off. Sorry, that's my own therapy issue. So we'll move on from that.
No, I understand. But listen, I've talked to so many patients with so many conditions over the years. It's an honor to talk to you and listen to your story as well. And again, I think the most important things that we can do for each other, especially in today's world, is listen and validate and show up with an open heart and a loving spirit, man. If we had more of that going on, it would be so much better.
Right? Let's go into some loving spirit then, because something you said about you, like if your partner's going off to do their thing, you need to find something for yourself. And I think you hit a giant nerve, which is when someone suddenly, I'm very lucky that I've been sick my whole life and I've built skills for that. A lot of people are just suddenly, you're in bed and you're like, how do I grow from here? How do you thrive and grow when you're fighting for your at least lifestyle, if not your very life?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Well, again, none of this stuff is easy. I just, again, want to stress that and validate everybody that is sitting in that place where it's so hard. I would say it's baby steps, small incremental steps. I tell this story that has stuck with me for my entire journey with MS, and I've done some pretty amazing things in spite of MS, but on par with that was I had spent the better part of a couple of years learning how to go from a wheelchair to a walker to a cane. I wasn't able to do anything for anybody. And the person I loved the most in the world was my daughter. Still do. And I practiced and practiced and practiced these things till I was able to, about 18 months into my journey or so, accomplish one thing, and that was that I got from the bedroom to the kitchen to be able to put toast in the toaster and send her off to school with a piece of toast. That was the biggest accomplishment in a year and a half, pretty much. And that was such a growth moment for me in my personal development, in my sense of self, in feeling proud, like I could still be her mom. I might be different than some of the other moms, but who cares? Different's okay. And those little incremental steps started to put Humpty Dumpty back together again. It gave me the courage to try something else. And then I think sometimes one success begets another success. And so that was sort of when I felt like, well, I did that. Now, what will it feel like if I try this? Now, some days after I layered on a second, things are, I need to go take a 3 hour nap. That's okay. That's okay. You know, and I think that's important. There's no wrong or right in this diagnosed journey. There's no wrong or right. And if people are trying to tell you that there is, take a deep breath and don't let yourself get lost in that, because you're going to find your way on your own time and make it your own journey. My point about the book is just keep the journey going. Have the courage and the confidence and lean into some skills that you have in you, learn from others to just keep moving forward. Instead of looking in the rear view mirror, let's see what can be out the windscreen.
It'd be so nice if we got more. Like when you're talking about your daughter, I was thinking the first time I cried over a commercial was a Ritz cracker commercial, and it was a mom in a wheelchair, and she was making her child snacks. There's no discussion about her being in a wheelchair. She's just a wheelchair mom making snacks, and I cried. This is the first time I'd seen a mother in a wheelchair just living her fucking life instead of like all the moralizing. She just wants to get up and walk. Can we pray for her? Can we like get her to do painful things to get out of the wheelchair? Like it was so healing to me, and I wish we had more
For sure.
more discussions around that.
Yeah, like I wasn't in that space of, oh, I hope I could walk her down the aisle. Again, that was like back in that grief stage. Oh, I'm going to lose that.
Yeah.
No, I was just very present in, this is what I accomplished today. She's happy. I'm happy. Now let's build upon that. And let's acknowledge that that was really great. Like instead of the self-talk of what a bad person I am, I can only do this. It's turning that narrative on its head and being, that's awesome. I did that for the first time in 18 months. So well done.
You make such a good point, and I think that there's more discussions to be had, and I hope someday I get you back on to talk about parenting while sick. One of the best things was my children are now grown, and they've both told me, and I felt so much guilt. They were like, "What are you saying? You spent so much time with us. Like none of our friends spent this much time with their parents when they were teenagers. Like you would watch Doctor Who marathons with us.
That's awesome. And I bet, Monica, that your children would testify to this, and anybody listening out there, if you don't believe this, again, I've worked with tens of thousands of patients all over the world, and I am telling you that the children of people living with a life-changing condition, like the majority of I've seen, are like have silent strength, that they really have this amazing and a compassion different and more abundant than their peer group.
I would have to agree. I've gotten to see a lot of it, and I'm just a little biased. My children are wonderful, but I'm biased. I want to know about your book and how you want people to use it. Do you want people just to sit down, read it straight through, or do you want them to like go like, hey, I'm having trouble with this moment on my journey through this. This is
Great
the
question.
system.
You're the first person that to ask me this, and the answer is that is you can do both. That is a great question. A lot of people, yeah, and a lot of people want to sit down and read. Let's see, I don't even know how many pages I have here. I think 360. So it's like 351 pages. And if you want to sit down and you can do it, but I wrote it because when I was sick, I couldn't get through that all at one time. So I wrote it. So if you're struggling with optimizing your care, switch to that chapter. And I kind of there's some repetition and redundancy in the book so that you can just go to that chapter and get a little bit of a reminder of the chapters before, even if you haven't read them.
I love that. I'm so glad you understand the chronic illness. This is where someone who's sick understands, and that's
100%.
like, yeah, holding that stuff is hard. I do want to talk to you about what if there's stories in the book that just resonate with you, like where you heard the story, and it was either like so antithetical to what you were thinking, or it was so like, this is why I'm writing this book.
Well, I have a lot of patient stories in the book, and what I tried to do is, lean into my network of some amazing people like yourself and this listening audience, and people that I knew really had a story that fit the chapter that I was writing about grief or endurance or anger, and asked if they would be okay sharing a snippet. So I thought that that added a little bit of some heft, not just like my opinion, but here's some other real people that have experiences with this. So I think that that is helpful. I also, what has stood out to me throughout all of this, and it's not exactly answering your question in that way, but I think it's important to say it is the power of everybody's narrative, the power of the story. I mean, I built a business kind of based on that. I know that my story, when I had the opportunity to share it, helped other people, but it healed me. And so, again, I think that we're on this podcast sharing our experiences because it builds bridges, it adds commonality, it makes you know you're not alone, and ultimately drives toward feeling less alone, which hopefully makes you feel hopeful and gives you a little bit of joy in your life. So I would just say that it is important that your voice is heard. It is important that you share your opinions and your perspective with anybody that will listen. And I'll listen if I need to. And, I think that helps lighten the load. So that's why there's people's stories in the book besides mine. That's why I like to hear stories. I'm working on a second iteration of the website. The publisher kind of made one where I can hopefully have like a story repository because I feel really strong in the idea of the collective share.
I cannot agree with you more. Stories are what actually changes the world. We keep thinking that it's something else with like logic, but it is the stories that actually builds the empathy with others to create change. We're getting close to the 45-minute mark, and I know you have other things to do, but we do have a lot of people who listen who want to take on a project like writing a book, be it fiction or being it like delving into something like this. And chronically ill people we are so good at thinking outside the box. And I wonder if you have any advice for anyone who's listening to this going, I want to discuss what it's like to be disabled in India, or I want to discuss like physical therapy in this area, or whatever you're dealing with or thinking about that you are maybe not an expert, but you are a living expert in that.
100%. And you are an expert. So again, I'm all about validation and having people feel seen. If you're living with some of this stuff, I can assure you, you're an expert. Yes. Yes, you 100%. So you are an expert. And look, writing a book is not something that came like supernaturally to me, but I've been asked enough times to do this that I kind of thought with COVID, why not? I'm a better probably talker than I am a writer. So I spoke my book, and there's all kinds of adaptive devices that you can use. I audio recorded it essentially, and then got the transcript and realized, well, here's an and a that, and poor English, and then went back and wrote and fixed. So I would say again, there's something cathartic why we like stories. We just talked about that, but there is something cathartic about pen to paper. Also, think a good exercise, if you'll indulge me, anybody listening out there, I find this very healing too. And I've done it with a lot of people and their families, spending the time to write a letter to your younger self. If you could
Mm.
tell the newly diagnosed person that you were, or the younger you, your perspective of where you are at today, that writing exercise serves as a beautiful prompt to just connect to, I think, all the things that are good inside all of us and help be a reminder to you. Because again, when you don't feel good, it's really easy to have a bad attitude, not by choice or any fault. It's not fun feeling crappy.
That's a very good point.
It's not. It's not. It's terrible.
Were there any tools that you could recommend? Like I write fiction. I
Yeah,
swear
congratulations.
by Scrivener. I would not be able I'm not finished with anything, but I wouldn't even be this close if it wasn't for the
It's good.
organizational methods
I
of Scrivener.
Google's Doc.
Ah, it's a good one. Yeah.
It's a very simple one. It's pretty much on every machine. You can share the documents. So I kept it simple because I have MS, and the more simple things are for me, the better it is.
Why does anyone like I don't understand why any of these companies want to make anything complicated. Like just universal design, stupid simple before you release it, hand it to a 5-year-old and an 80-year-old.
Correct.
And with no instructions. If they cannot do it, do not release it yet.
I agree. Reading instructions are never going to be my strong suit.
Ever. I'm so bad at
No.
if I can't just generally figure it out, it's done.
Like I need everything like Legos, a picture, and then I'm good to go.
Yeah, it just needs to be stupid simple. I have one question to ask everyone at the end of the episode, mostly because I'm trying to get ideas. Do you have anything that you bought for under $100 that was just and it doesn't have to be medical? While you're thinking, my favorite, and I'm not sponsored by any means, I have a Sealy's bed thing that goes around the whole bed. That's a heating pad for the whole bed. It was $90. It saves me.
That's great.
Anything
So
that works for you?
it's funny because both of ours have to do with, temperature controlled. And I'm thinking of that because I'm sitting in Virginia right now where the humidity is starting to climb and so is the temperature. And while I was much more heat sensitive early on, those really terrible summer days, 90 plus degrees with 90% humidity. I don't even know what you call them, but it's like a cooling rag. You can put it around, you can put it in the freezer. Some of them you crack or some of you don't, and you just kind of wear it like you look like a really awesome park ranger or sporty camping ready to go, and putting that around my neck on a hot day is never a bad idea.
Literally I'm so easily influenced. I just bought off of TikTok shop a little wearable, and I'm not even in Virginia. I'm in California right now, and we're 68, and I'm still oh, this is too hot. I got a fan for that. I'm such a wimp on heat. I bow down.
That's a great one. I've also seen people with the little fans, where you can turn on the little fan, and some of them have the water squirters, so you get
go around this that are plastic, and they'll spray you. And I'm this seems I could spend a lot of money on these.
That's great. And then I'm trying to think of some other ones over the years. It comes in under $100. I think for people wanting to try to get back to, as we're in the summer months here, get back to any kind of traveling, whether it's camping or you're getting on an airplane. For people that need an ambulation device, there's some really inexpensive foldable canes or walking sticks that I've used that are great. And there's different price points, but you can definitely get them for under $100, and I would recommend those as well.
I was able to get one that wrapped around my forearm, and it was a cane, and you didn't and it was only $80. I know only. Yeah. I'm so sorry. Yeah. That's a significant amount, but
yeah,
the amount saved me on physical therapy was amazing. Yeah. And the walkers, you can get them for $200, and they turn into wheelchairs, which I used all through Edinburgh last year.
That's right, and you can sit on them sometimes. Yeah.
Now that you're going to be doing book tours, I'm guessing this is all stuff you will be using.
Well, like I said, I'm honored to be on the program. I'm very grateful for the opportunity, and I'm really grateful to the listeners and the readers. I did want to just add that, I'm diagnosed of the book, Diagnosed, The Essential Guide to Navigating the Patient Journey. My proceeds, I'm donating all those to health charities. So I will
Do you have
include.
any specific health charities so that we can link them in our show notes?
I'll tell you, that will be something that I do at the end of the year, and I'll do it at the end of every year. And my commitment, first and foremost, is, all the people that have me on the podcast and stuff. Of course, the disease that they're living with, I will make a contribution. And then I'm hopeful, again, on the website that I'm sort of retooling right now. People with chronic illnesses, I'm behind the eight ball. Should have had it done a while ago, but what the hell? It's not. I'm hopeful that we can sort of get people that have been interested in my story or the book or listen to write in what they think. And so, like I told you, there's power in the collective. So I'm hopeful that at the end of the year, we can do this as a team.
Very cool. When you find those charities, to let us know, and we'll link it up. I cannot thank you enough for your time.
I'm so happy.
Head over to our show notes if you're listening. I will have a link directly to buy the book. So
yeah,
we'll have all of your social links.
BrendaSnow.com, yep, and my Insta handle. And if anybody needs a shoulder to cry on, I'm happy to.
That is very kind of you.
Bye.
So much, everyone. Be kind, be gentle, and whatever it looks like to you, be fierce.